We begin with the idea that silence isn't chosen, it grows. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in tiny, almost invisible moments. The kind you only recognize years later when you notice how much space the quiet has taken up inside you. In this opening chapter, the story focuses on how people slowly drift away from asking for comfort, how the habit doesn't break all at once, but chips away over time. The goal here is to build emotional grounding, to show the viewer that the quiet ones didn't become quiet out of personality, but out of practice. We follow Mara first. She sits with her phone in her hand, staring at a message she keeps rewriting. It's only 3 words. Can we talk? But it feels like a boulder she's trying to lift. Every time she gets close to pressing send, the invisible weight of self-doubt drags her finger away. She knows her friends care. She knows Jace would probably respond right away. And yet something inside her insists that asking for a moment of comfort is somehow an inconvenience, as if her needs must be perfectly timed, perfectly packaged, and perfectly reasonable before she's allowed to voice them. Most people have a moment like this, a moment when they wanted to reach out, but felt like they shouldn't. And once you do that enough times, it becomes a habit. It becomes a personality trait. It becomes your identity. Then we meet Jace. He's the kind of person who makes jokes at the exact moment he wants to cry. The kind who calls himself emotionally low maintenance, even though he quietly hopes someone will see the cracks in him without being told. Jace is the proof that silence doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it looks like humor, distraction, or effortless charm. People who forgot how to ask for comfort learned to perform the parts of themselves that are easiest for others to accept. And then there's Lena, the universal comfort giver, the one who shows up with soup when you're sick, who remembers your heartbreak anniversary, who checks in just because. But when she hurts, she folds inward. Not because she's secretive, but because she genuinely doesn't know how to be the one who needs something. These 3 people, Mara, Jace, and Lena, aren't meant to represent different personalities. They're meant to represent different ways people learn to be quiet, different forms of the same ache. This chapter's purpose is to establish this shared emotional foundation. People don't stop asking for comfort because they don't need it. They stop because they were taught, by experience, by trauma, by circumstance, that silence is safer. And once silence becomes safe, it becomes home. Every silence has an origin story. It doesn't start in adulthood, and it rarely starts with something big. Most of the time, it grows in the rooms where we learn to make ourselves smaller. This chapter explores those rooms, not literal rooms, but emotional ones. Places where someone's voice was softened, corrected, dismissed, or simply ignored until they stopped trying altogether. We begin with Mara again, but not the grown version of her. We see her as a child, sitting at the edge of the living room while adults talk over her. She tries to speak, just a small thought, a tiny question. But the moment she opens her mouth, she's waved off with a quick, "Not now, sweetheart," or "We're talking." It's not the rejection itself that changes her. It's the repetition. It's the moment she learns that being quiet keeps the peace. Being quiet keeps you from being a bother. Being quiet earns approval. For some kids, this becomes a permanent rule. We move to Jace next. His silence didn't come from being ignored. His came from being told he was too sensitive. Every time he cried, he heard someone say, "Come on, it's not that bad." Or, "Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing?" It wasn't meant to hurt him, but it taught him something anyway. Emotions aren't welcome unless they're small. So he made them small, or at least he made them look small from the outside. Lena's quiet formed in a different place. Her family wasn't dismissive. Actually, they were chaotic in a way that forced her into the caretaker role too early. When everyone around you constantly needs something, you learn to tuck away your own needs until there's a better time. But in families like that, there's never a better time. So Lena grew up mastering the skill of emotional CPR while letting her own breath run thin. And here's the thing, none of these rooms were abusive or monstrous. Most were ordinary. Most were unintentional. That's why they're so powerful. They happen quietly, and they shape us quietly. This chapter lays the foundation for understanding that silence is not a personality trait. It's a survival strategy, a way of keeping harmony, a way of avoiding shame, a way of avoiding disappointment. It's a habit built in childhood that follows people all the way into adulthood. Because when you grow up in rooms where your voice dimmed, you eventually stop trying to raise it. By the time someone reaches adulthood, silence isn't just a habit anymore. It's a language they've learned to speak fluently. This chapter explores what happens when those early patterns slip into grown-up relationships, friendships, and daily life. Not dramatically, not loudly, almost invisibly. We start with the everyday moments. Mara sits across from a friend in a cafe. She's stirred her coffee so long, the foam has disappeared. Her friend asks, "How have you been?" And for half a second, Mara thinks about telling the truth. She imagines saying, "Honestly, I'm tired. I feel out of place lately. I feel like I'm losing pieces of myself." But then the reflex kicks in, the reflex that has saved her from embarrassment, from dismissal, from feeling like a burden. "Yeah, I'm good. You?" The simplest lie, the safest one. We move to Jace, sitting on the edge of his bed after a long day. His group chat is buzzing. Everyone's joking around. He types out something real, something like, "Guys, I'm not doing great tonight." His thumb hovers over the send button, but then he remembers all the times he didn't get a response when he attempted vulnerability. Not because no one cared, but because everyone was busy, distracted, or assumed he'd be fine. So he deletes the message and sends a meme instead. Everyone reacts. Everyone laughs. Everyone thinks he's okay. People who don't ask for comfort often become masters at making others comfortable, just so no one has to see what they're holding. Lena, meanwhile, carries a different kind of silence. She's the reliable one, the one everyone leans on. When someone's car breaks down, she's there. When someone goes through a breakup, she sits with them. But the moment she feels overwhelmed, her instinct is to go dark, not out of anger, but out of fear that leaning on someone will make her look weak or needy. Her screen stays lit with other people's problems, never her own. These stories reflect a powerful truth. Adults don't stop sharing because they don't trust people. They stop because history taught them not to trust the moment after sharing. Silence becomes comfortable, predictable, safe. But silence also becomes heavy. It turns into unsent messages, unspoken anxieties, unasked questions, unread signals. It becomes the drawer where people hide everything they're too scared to express. And over time, those things left unsaid pile up until they start affecting relationships in ways no one notices at first. Less eye contact, shorter conversations, lonely nights spent pretending everything's normal. This chapter paints a picture of how the quiet doesn't just linger inside people. It changes the way they move through the world, the way they form connections, the way they avoid conflict, the way they avoid being seen too clearly. Because being seen means being vulnerable. And being vulnerable means risking everything they learned to fear. But silence isn't the end of the story, it's the middle. And the longer it lingers, the heavier it becomes. At this point in the story, the silence has become almost second nature. Not a choice, but a reflex. A way of managing life without ever having to say the words, "I need help." This chapter looks at what happens when people become so accustomed to swallowing their emotions that they don't recognize their own needs anymore. They don't just hide their pain, they minimize it, rationalize it, or pretend it never existed in the first place. We revisit Mara first. She's gotten so good at ignoring herself that she doesn't realize how worn down she is. She keeps moving, keeps working, keeps showing up. Her friends praise her for being resilient, for being low maintenance. But what they don't realize is that Mara wears that label like armor, heavy, cold, and impossible to take off. She's forgotten the difference between coping and numbing, between suppressing and surviving, between silence and peace. Then we see Jace. He's always been the joker, the distraction, the one who lifts the mood. But lately, the jokes don't feel like jokes anymore. They feel like walls, the kind you build so high you forget what's on the other side. His friends think he's carefree. But the truth is, Jace is terrified of what might happen if he stopped making everyone laugh. He fears the stillness. He fears the moment someone might look at him long enough to see that his smile doesn't reach his eyes. Lena is the one who shows this swallowing most clearly. Her life is full of helping others, driving people to the airport, listening through breakups, covering shifts, remembering birthdays. But every time someone asks her, "Are you okay?" she brushes it off with a soft laugh and "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." She means it. Or at least she thinks she does. Because she's convinced herself that her needs are small, that her pain is manageable, that her tiredness is normal. She has grown fluent in the art of pretending she doesn't need anything from anyone. And that's what this chapter is really about, the invisibility of swallowed emotions. People who learned to swallow their feelings don't look broken or distressed. They look functional. They look reliable. They look strong. They look like everything's fine. But the danger is this: swallowed emotions don't disappear. They settle. They accumulate. They press into the walls of the body and the mind until something eventually cracks. This chapter examines the slow pressure, the quiet erosion of well-being, the headaches that never go away, the sleepless nights, the shrinking social circles, the growing feeling that you're standing in a crowded room but nobody truly knows you. Silence, when swallowed long enough, becomes a suffocating thing. It becomes a weight that grows heavier every year. But here's the turning point. The story doesn't stay in that heaviness. Not yet. Not entirely, because before the silence breaks, it echoes. Silence doesn't stay still. It moves. It circles back. It has a way of returning, not as sound, but as an echo you feel in your chest before you ever hear it in your mind. This chapter is about that echo, the quiet reminder that all the things someone swallowed are still in there, waiting for recognition. We begin with Mara. She's walking home late, earbuds in, music low. Nothing dramatic is happening. No crisis, no heartbreak, no sudden tragedy. Just an ordinary night. But then it hits her. That strange, hollow ache. The feeling of being almost okay and barely okay at the same time. It's not sadness exactly. More like something tapping on the inside of her ribs. something asking to be acknowledged after years of being ignored. That tap, that subtle pressure, is the echo. And here's the unsettling part. Mara doesn't know what it wants. She can't name it. She can't explain it. She only knows it's hers. Then we move to Jace. For him, the echo arrives in moments when the distractions fail. He's watching something funny online, something he'd normally laugh at. But this time, the humor doesn't land. The room feels too quiet. His chest feels tight. It's the realization that even when he's surrounded by noise, something inside him is unbearably quiet. It's the first time he notices the emotional gap between who he is and who he pretends to be. For Lena, the echo appears differently. She's helping a friend plan a big event, doing her usual emotional labor-heavy routine. When someone casually says, "You're always there for everyone," it's meant as a compliment, but it hits her like a bruise, because being always there for everyone means she hasn't been there for herself in years. And suddenly, in that small moment, she feels the weight of every time she told herself she didn't need anything. For people who forget how to ask for comfort, the echo often comes disguised. In sudden exhaustion, in random tears you can't explain, in irritability you don't understand, in moments of hollow quiet, in the realization that you don't remember the last time someone asked what you needed. This chapter explores that awakening, not dramatic or explosive, but subtle and deeply personal. The echo is the body's way of saying, "I haven't forgotten you, even if you've forgotten me." It's a reminder that silence isn't peace. It's simply suppressed noise. Noise that eventually finds a way back. The echo doesn't break someone open. Not yet. But it does make them pause. It makes them wonder. It makes them question whether the quiet they live in is actually comforting or just familiar. This chapter marks the beginning of that shift, where the characters start noticing their inner landscape for the first time in a long time. The echo is the first sign of change. The first crack in the wall, the first whisper that maybe, just maybe, they deserve something more. By now, the echo has made itself known. Subtle, lingering, impossible to unfeel. But the characters aren't ready to act on it. Not yet. Before anyone reaches out, they retreat. And this retreat leads to a different kind of silence, the quiet that doesn't ask for anything at all. This chapter explores that deeper quiet, the one that forms after someone realizes they're hurting, but still doesn't believe they're allowed to say so. We begin with Mara. After the strange ache she felt, she starts pulling back from conversations without meaning to. She doesn't cancel plans. She simply doesn't initiate them. She answers texts, but only just enough to keep connections alive. She becomes a background presence in her own social circle, present but muted. Her friends don't see it. They just assume she's busy. Because quiet people don't set off alarms, they just fade. Jace enters his own version of this quiet. He stops being the loudest voice in the room. Not dramatically, not unnoticeably, just subtly enough that people chalk it up to him, chilling out. But inside, he's becoming emptier. His jokes feel forced. His smiles feel heavy. He's not unhappy exactly. He's unanchored. His echo hasn't turned into words. It's turned into withdrawal. Then there's Lena. Her quiet looks different, more practiced, more polished. She fills her days helping others, overworking, overscheduling, overgiving. Her quiet hides in busyness. For her, silence isn't about disappearing. It's about becoming so useful that no one ever thinks to ask if she needs anything. This chapter captures the most dangerous form of quiet, The quiet that convinces people they're fine because they're functioning. Functioning is not healing. Functioning is not coping. Functioning is simply doing what needs to be done to avoid slowing down long enough to feel something. But here's the truth. The chapter underscores. The quiet that asks for nothing is rarely empty. It usually holds unanswered questions, unprocessed memories, unmet needs, unnoticed exhaustion, unresolved grief. People don't stay in this stage forever, not because they choose to leave it, but because something eventually forces them to confront the silence. This chapter is the stillness before the shift, the place where everything is calm on the outside, but internally, the pressure is building. Not explosively, just steadily. It's the moment a character stands at the edge of something they don't fully understand yet. They're not asking for help. They're not reaching out. They're not ready. But for the first time in a long time, they're starting to want something. Just a little. Something small. Something soft. Something human. This is the chapter where something shifts. Very gently, almost imperceptibly. It's not a dramatic breakthrough or a tear-filled confession. It's the moment before the moment. The soft, almost tender return of wanting. Something more than silence. Wanting comfort again. We begin with Mara. She's scrolling through old photos on her phone, something she usually avoids because it reminds her of who she used to be. But this time, one photo catches her. A picture of her laughing so hard, her eyes are squeezed shut, surrounded by friends during a late-night hangout. She doesn't miss the moment itself. She misses how open she once was, how easy it felt to exist around others, how natural it was to reach out when she needed connection. For the first time in years, Mara feels a small, surprising thought rise up. I kinda want that again. It's not a request. It's not even close to a spoken need. But it's a spark. Something quietly reawakening. Then Jace. After weeks of feeling off balance, he's sitting alone at a diner, eating fries he doesn't even taste. The waitress stops by and asks, "You doing okay tonight?" It's such a tiny question, so routine that most people would brush it off. But something about her tone, a simple human check-in, hits Jace harder than he expects. Not painfully, just deeply. For a second, he imagines himself actually answering honestly. He imagines saying, "Honestly?" No, not really. He imagines the relief of admitting it aloud. He doesn't say it, but he feels the wanting, faint but present, a want for connection, a want for someone to notice without him having to perform for it. Lena's moment happens late at night. She's exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. She sits at the edge of her bed and realizes she hasn't had a real conversation about herself in months. She picks up her phone. Her thumb hovers over a friend's name. She doesn't text them. She doesn't call. But she thinks about it. Thinking about reaching out is new. Thinking about expressing need is new. Thinking about being held, supported, understood. It scares her. But it also warms something she didn't realize was numb. This chapter captures the moment desire returns before willingness does. The quiet recollection that needing comfort is human, that asking for comfort is possible, that wanting comfort is allowed. It's the reappearance of emotional hunger after years of self-imposed starvation. And this wanting, as small as it seems, is powerful. Because once someone admits to themselves that they want comfort, the silence they've lived in doesn't feel as safe anymore. Their quiet starts to feel lonely instead of protective, heavy instead of peaceful, restrictive instead of familiar. The want grows, slowly, softly, steadily. It's the first sign that the walls they built around themselves might not be as unbreakable as they thought. This is the chapter where everything becomes real, where the wanting, quiet, tentative, uncertain, finally reaches a point where it can't stay inside anymore. It doesn't explode out. It doesn't come in a dramatic, cinematic burst. It emerges slowly, clumsily, almost accidentally. The first attempt at asking for comfort after years of silence never looks polished. It looks frightened. It looks awkward. It looks like reaching out a hand and hoping it doesn't get slapped away. We start with Mara. She's had one of those days. Nothing catastrophic, just a slow build of small heavinesses. The kind that stack up quietly until you suddenly feel like you can't breathe all the way in. That evening, she opens her chat with a friend and types, "Hey, are you busy?" It's the safest possible sentence, the least vulnerable way to test the waters. But for someone who hasn't asked for support in years, it feels like she's lifting the weight of her entire history. Her finger trembles. Her heart races. Her stomach knots. She hits send. Not a full confession. Not a breakdown. Just a little door cracked open for light. Then Jace. He's sitting in his car after work, engine off, headlights dimming on the garage wall. He knows something's wrong. He's known for weeks. He wants to say it out loud, but the words feel foreign in his mouth. So he does the smallest, bravest thing he can manage. He calls a friend and says, "Hey, can we hang out tonight? I kinda don't want to be alone." That's it. No details. No raw confessions. But for Jace, who has spent years pretending he's always okay, this is monumental. It's the first time he's admitted, even indirectly, that he needs company, that he needs something. Lena's moment arrives differently. She's helping someone, again, and suddenly she feels a wave of exhaustion, so intense she has to sit down. Her friend notices and asks, "You all right?" Normally she'd brush it off, she'd smile, she'd redirect. She'd say she's fine, and then keep giving herself away. But tonight, she pauses. Just for a breath. Just long enough to say, in the smallest voice, "I think I might be really tired." It's not a request. It's not a plea. It's not even a full admission. But it's honest. And honesty is its own kind of asking. In this chapter, the characters don't suddenly become open books. They don't reveal everything. They don't magically trust people again. They don't rewrite their entire emotional history. What they do is far simpler and far braver. They take the first step back toward connection. That first step is shaky, but it's real. It's the first time they choose vulnerability over comfort, truth over performance, presence over silence. This chapter is about the courage required to whisper a need after years of saying nothing. It's about how asking doesn't start with grand declarations. It starts with barely there sentences, almost invisible, but life-changing. Because once you ask even a little, something shifts inside you. Something unlocks. Something awakens. The world doesn't change, but you do.